Welcome back to the State of the Ark podcast. My name is Mike.
My name is Kason.
And we're back to finish what we started last week, which is the B playthrough of NieR Automata. We left off after beating Simone.
Yep.
And now we're going to be getting into a scene with Adam and Eve here that we didn't see on the first playthrough. Adam and Eve, as 2B are heading towards the machine village, we get this dialogue. We get a few of these. They're at a long table, Adam on the right side, Eve on the left, kind of sitting at the ends of this long table. And mostly these are scenes in which Eve questions why they're doing what they're doing, and Adam tries to explain it.
I have a good reading for this, and then they usually end with Eve being like, "Okay, fine. When we do that, can we play?"
Yes, right.
Adam's like, "Yes, then we can play." And Eve's like, "Sweet, I'm gonna do it." And it's like a kid. Eve has this like very childish nature,
childlike,
and then Adam has this more sophisticated, but not overly sophisticated.
Yeah.
Yes, overly sophisticated, but not. How would I put that? How would you put Adam?
It's a
sophistry, but it's not true wisdom in any way.
It's like the teenage.
There you go. That's
attempt at being a philosopher or something.
There you go. So trying to be deep, but not quite hitting a home run there.
He's getting closer, but not quite there.
The way the scene is set up is really cool because you've got this like white kind of. It's a very lit kind of like. Area that they're in, right? And I don't know exactly where it is, but like the light shines through and they have this long table, and they're sitting on opposite ends of the table, right? And they're separated by the table, you could see. Yeah. And that the reason why they're sitting on opposite ends of the table is because, I don't know why I'm reading this into it, but it's like, because, and as Adam would say, that's what humans did. If you look at the high cultured, the rich people, they had a long table and then they sat on the ends, right?
Yeah,
then that's just what they did, right? Because if you sat in the middle, you're one of many. But if you sat on the ends, you occupy a unique position. Yes, the head, right? And so Adam and Eve are here, and Adam and Eve, like Eve wants to join together with Adam. Eve wants them to be together, but Adam has placed human culture as a barrier in between them.
That's true.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so the table kind of exemplifies that. And the Adam is like, yeah, I kind of want to play, but also I'm the boss. You're going to do what I say. Yep. And we have a whole list of things that we got to get through first. He's getting Eve to read books and to eat fruit and to do all these weird things that Eve doesn't want to do. Wear underwear, which we're about to talk about. Right. But it's all part of the culture, right? But it builds this separation between them that Eve is kind of upset about, but that Adam has placed there. And I feel like the table kind of exemplifies that.
Yeah. So the dialogue here, it comes from Eve first.
Funny.
Brother, why do we have to wear undergarments? It's such a hassle. The records claim humans covered their crotches as they went about their business. Revealing one's genitals was seen as problematic. So just be quiet and wear them already. Okay. Mm-hmm. But why are we eating this plant matter? He's got an apple, which is purposeful, right? An apple for Adam and Eve. Machines don't need to eat things like this. This is a type of fruit. Our data suggests that mankind gained great intelligence from consuming fruit. This is the biblical story of Adam and Eve, the fruit of the tree of knowledge.
But I love that that Eve calls it plant matter, right?
Yes.
They would have some aversion to consuming plants, given that the relationship of plants, at least on Earth, to the aliens that were their previous owners.
Like plants.
Yeah, it's so good because I mentioned before, like they were covered in a kippur, like the Hebrew word, in an atonement kind of way. Like they were covered by the plants, right? Until but the way that Eve is talking about consuming plant matter, it's like essentially the way that they freed themselves from the aliens was by, I don't know, consuming may not be like the right word, but they killed the plants and then they, kind of took over from that point on. As Eve is consuming plant matter, it kind of harkens back to who they were. Like they consumed the knowledge of the plants, they surpassed the plants, so then they could just kill them. They didn't need them, but they had to consume first. In that sense that I kind of talked about last episode with Tipovar, the idea of like consuming stuff. Like, they were able to get all of it. And Eve is now talking about consuming plant matter. That really stood out to me.
Mm-hmm. So our data suggests mankind gained great intelligence by consuming fruit. See, that's just such a misunderstanding of even
intelligence.
Anyways, but that was the interpretation, the knowledge of good and evil, the fruit, was gained by eating the fruit, not by the fact that this is actually a symbolic story, not a literal one.
Right.
I guess there are biblical literalists out there, but...
Or that humans went around their daily lives eating fruit thinking it made them wiser.
Right.
Like, which is a total...
No.
I don't think anyone thinks that.
No. So quit griping already and eat it. All right, if that's what you want. But once we're done, can we play together for a bit? Fine. Oh, great. Then I'm going to eat lots of fruit.
Now, I have a question. Did they ever actually get to play?
I wonder.
I don't know, because we never see that.
Never see it happen.
I hope. I have this hope in my mind that they did get to play at least once together. And what would that have looked like?
Yeah.
Like, what would their play have been? Oh,
That's a
I
good
love
question.
it. It's so funny.
I took down here, Operator 210 tells 9S to stop making modifications to his flight suit.
That's right.
Because he was like, oh, it wasn't efficient enough and blah, 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 blah. And she's like, no, stop doing that. I can't remember what else she said or why I took that note in particular. I think it's just more or less
the back and forth.
He is displaying this sort of assertiveness or decision-making without consulting
The committee, right?
Yeah, like without going up the chain of command. He seems to be willing to like go after something if he feels like doing it, even if it's not protocol to do so, which is very important for why he ends up where he ends up at the end of this as part of the machine network and with the logic virus and all this stuff. So we even talked about this a little bit earlier when they were like, hey, A2, you need to kill her and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, why? And then they're like, it's classified. And he's like, okay, let's go ask Pascal then.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
let's find out.
He never accepts commands, initiatives blindly, which is what the whole blindfold is kind of representing, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's in the ending, he gets his blindfold removed first, but I don't know if that has anything to do with anything. But typically, he's the one more willing to not just follow blindly. Yeah. So, whereas 2B is very much not that way.
The idea of having to consult a committee for these split-second like battlefield decisions that he makes is probably something anybody who served in the military will have some familiar with. Yeah. I've heard from a lot of people where it's like, golly, to tie your shoes, you got to get like authority. You got to get permission from the colonel to tie your shoes. You know? Like, it really hampers things, right? To have to consult a committee anytime you think you need to make a small change is kind of a ridiculous way to run things. But that's the way it's not. Yeah. But that's the way that Yorha chooses to
they
run
operate.
Things.
Missionary life was kind of that way as well.
Very top down. That is true.
Okay, so after the scene with Adam and Eve in the alien underground bunker, so I'm all the way now past the part where they fought them again.
Then I just wanted to comment on the line when Pascal says after the alien, the robot attacks, right? The big giant Goliath thing shows up in the city. Pascal, like 9S, is like, wait, you lured us away so that we wouldn't be there when the thing happened. Like, you planned this, didn't you? And Pascal says, no, I promise I didn't. The line here is, I know the odds of you believing me are quite low, but I hope you will nonetheless. Now, you're talking to robots. You're talking to a type of AI. You're talking to something that can make calculations like at breakneck speeds, right? And you're saying the math doesn't equate, but please believe me despite the math. Yeah. That's interesting. It's a definition of faith. Yeah. Like, it's a way of saying, it's not the only definition of faith, but that is a way of saying that Pascal has developed the understanding of the concept of believing things despite certain evidences to the contrary. Yeah. I thought that was very interesting. Yeah, that's great. And then this giant is called Engels as well, right?
Yes, same name as the other one. Yeah. Okay. They're both
now, are they the same robot?
I don't think they're the same robot. Okay. I think they're just the same class of robot.
Engels class?
Because even in the beginning of the game, in the abandoned factory intro sequence, at the end of that, there's like 3 more that get up out of the ocean. And
that's right. Are they all called Engels?
I think they're all just called Engels.
3 Engels.
That would be my assumption.
3 Engels is a triangle. I could put something up there. Anywho, okay, then we have the journey to the underworld and initiation in the alien's secret place.
Yes. So I just have the next sort of animated sequence.
Oh, good. Okay, that's right.
After the battle with Adam and Eve here, where
this was so interesting.
I killed my father, I killed my mother, I killed my father, I killed my mother. And in his hand, he coldly gripped both the joy of growing up, which is, I found interesting based on what we've talked about the killing the father thing many times in the past on this podcast, the joy of growing up and the agony of being alone. So this seems to be a reference to Adam killing the aliens, or the machines, I guess, but he would be the representative of the machines as their half of their leader of their protocol or whatever.
Yes, but as Eve defers to Adam, he may not directly control the other half, but he definitely is in control of Eve, who controls the other half.
Yeah,
right.
right.
This is crazy. So he coldly gripped the joy of growing up and the agony of being alone.
Yeah.
And he's holding a sword.
Yeah.
Right. So the sword represents the joy of growing up and the agony of being alone. It's like that tool was like a sword, and I see this with my kids all the time, but anything that's long and roughly, things become weapons. Things become swords. Anything becomes a sword as long as it's like a long stick. It's a sword. And the joy of growing up is the joy of like pretending that you're fighting things or actually fighting things, but like you don't realize that the other side was pretending. It's just fun to go out and fight things when you're a kid. As a boy, I think. But
it sure is.
Then it also, that same thing that was the joy of growing up turned into the agony of being alone, because by that same tool, which was the way that you grow up and playfully learn, that same tool ends up killing your parents, right? And now you're left alone. Now you've got to make sense of the world without them.
Yes.
But it was the same thing, right? So he gripped the joy of growing up and the agony of being alone in the sword that he was holding.
Right.
I'm pretty sure this would be Adam, and then the idea is conveying, because if this is 9S who goes in and he's getting these ideas, right, that Adam does have some regret over what he did.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, when you say the agony of being alone, it's not just, it's like, you kill the aliens because you're better than them. Right? Because you've outgrown them. They used to be your father, and now you're the father. Now you're the king, right?
Yeah.
You can take your place. You don't need them anymore. And now you're alone, right? But the idea that once you destroy the thing that was above you, you're good job. There's
top.
Nothing above you, but now you're alone, and now what are you going to do? But it's almost like he had to do it. He had to destroy what was above him. He couldn't help it. He couldn't not do it. Especially after internalizing any human stuff, whatever the machines might have internalized. I don't know, this was centuries ago. I don't know how that works. But that is a concept, right?
Yeah.
But then once you're at the top, you start playing defense, dude, because like everyone's coming for you.
They're coming after you now.
And you're it. There's no one that's going to help you now, right?
Yeah, you're alone in that sense, yeah.
That's what I got here. But I found this very, very profound, very interesting. It really took me by surprise when it just comes out of the gate. I killed my father. I killed my mother. He says it twice. Mm-hmm. Very, very haunting.
Yeah, and then the
haunting.
duality of the joy of growing up and the agony of being alone, being two sides, or you could say...
a double-edged sword.
A double-edged sword.
Right. I missed that. That's good.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Good. That's that. I think that's it.
So, yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
So, my next note is in the Forest Kingdom. Do you have something before that?
Nope, that's where I'm at.
So, this time when you go through, you're seeing some flashbacks that go way back. So the first one goes back to 256 years ago. And it's interesting, the next one's 128. But...
those are, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, those are the multiples of 2, right?
Right, that's
so
got to be...
2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256.
Yeah, there's got to be a reason why they chose those numbers. But
honestly, that binary code tends to just...
That's true.
Have you ever noticed why, like, your memory cards always come in like...
Yeah. 256,
those exact numbers.
64.
It's because that's how computers process things. That's how that it just makes sense that you double
512.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 terabyte. Okay.
Which is not exactly.
It's not exactly 1 terabyte.
It's not exactly 1,000 gigabytes.
Something.
It's 1,024 gigabytes is 1 terabyte.
Exactly.
Anyways, it's funny. I like it.
Okay, so the first one's 256 years ago. We have a larger robot with some smaller ones. The forest we are stationed in, it is hot, humid, unhygienic, a punishing hell for machine life forms. None should have to live in such a place. I have decided I shall make this our kingdom and declare our independence. And these robots have no
That's
idea
right,
what that
yeah.
means.
I know, they're like,
What's a kingdom?
It's a house.
Yeah, he's like, well, it's a sort of large house. And inside this house, all our people live together as a family. And they're like, family? I suppose a family might be good with a question mark.
Good. See, the concept of good or bad is, it's foreign.
And then others are like, yeah, families are good. So this is the beginning of the Forest Kingdom, 256 years ago. Then, 128 years ago, this king died. So his majesty, he's dead. The king who gave us, or who gave all for us. So benevolent and kind, and now he is dead. This sure is sad. It sure is. There's something really, like just kind of like unsettling about a robot saying those words in the particular way that they say it.
The way they say it.
It's so, well, robotic.
Yeah.
and lacking in expression. But like, it's just hard to tell. Are they really feeling this? Or there's just something about it that's just off? And it's just like, it just ends, but it's so good. It's so good. This sure is sad. It sure is. But we royal knights still have a mission. We placed His Majesty's memory, his final memento, into this tiny child. And now we must raise this child so he might one day be our new king. He deserves a royal upbringing. He deserves protection. So I brought up earlier that the name of this child is Emmanuel, after Emmanuel Kant. Emmanuel Kant's whole philosophy in his book, the Critique
of Pure Reason,
is that the essence of being human, what makes us different from all the other animals on the planet, is our ability to reason, and that our ability to process and interpret the world around us is what makes us who we are. But it's also just an interpretation, and there's a concept called the thing in itself.
The thing in itself, yeah.
Right? That, and we talked, if you had missed the last episode, we talked all about this with the volcano exploding and how humans might have interpreted that as a god is angry or whatever it might be.
Because they can't see.
Yes.
And you can't blame them, but they can't see what's actually happening.
Yes.
No.
They're not just taking it as the thing itself.
Right.
This mountain exploded and lava came out.
Yeah.
It's no, this means something.
Right. Everything is alive. So
there's got to be a reason why, and that reason why must be attached to the other ways in which I've gone about interpreting this world around me and how it came to be, and that was the conclusion they came to. So while that is the essence of what it means to be human, it doesn't mean that our interpretations are really all that consistent with the thing itself.
No, but a drastically incorrect interpretation will result in your the natural selection taking its course.
Sure.
So not only do you just have to kind of try to figure out what things mean, you have to be right enough that it doesn't inhibit your survival. Because easily you could misinterpret something and just going on living your dumb life.
And it actually helps you out.
Yes. You can either be right or wrong. If you're right, good job. It gets propagated. If you're wrong and it has any reasonable effect on how society lives, which religion does, then it gets it gets weeded out, right? It's like, nope, wrong. That is not fit for survival here on Earth. Next time a volcano erupts and some other humans see it, we'll see what they come up with.
Yeah.
They might come up with a better interpretation that is helps them be more fit for survival.
Sure. Yeah. So the way that I thought about this for a while, because I was looking into this, I was like, okay, this idea of the thing itself, what does this have to do with this story? And this is what I kind of came up with. So I don't believe that they really did copy the consciousness of the king and put it in this baby. I think that was their interpretation of what they did. They think that they did
interesting.
They think that they did that. And so they assume this baby is going to grow and become their king again, not understanding how it works.
Like a reincarnation.
They're not seeing the thing itself.
Right.
It's just a little tiny robot.
Wait a sec.
It's not the king that you put in there who's going to grow up to be your king again.
That's a good point, but they can't see that.
No.
They look at the robots and they're like, we're basically people.
Yes.
Right? They look at their king, they look at all of this, and they're like, oh, we are, like, they aren't seeing that they're just machines. Right. They don't see that at all. Mm-hmm. It takes some foreign third party to show up and be like, oh, but you're all just like robotic machines. Yeah. And like, they don't see that. That's a really good point.
They are not seeing their nature as the thing itself. They're interpreting their nature through their
the emulation
of humanity. and they're coming to a wildly wrong interpretation of how this works.
And to the point of what I was saying before, evolution will have them for it.
Yes.
Like, they will not survive this.
Correct.
This blunder.
Correct.
Oh, it's funny.
So, as you're making your way further and further into the castle, you get another flashback. This was just 4 hours ago. They're all around the little baby, rocking him. His Majesty hasn't grown at all in 128
and
years.
100 years. And they're just now noticing it. I thought that was so funny.
So yeah, like, and has not exhibited any, I would assume, anything that would give the impression that king's memories are in that thing.
Yeah.
So this is why
it just
I don't
sucks on
believe
this fake pacifier and makes baby sounds.
I don't think this actually happened. I think whatever they did, they thought that that's what they were doing, but they didn't actually do it. So Emmanuel, the robot that died, and his memories were not saved in this baby. It's just a freaking baby that's, I don't know, built or designed to act like a baby.
See, that's the question, though. Who built this baby robot that cannot do anything? Has no functional utility?
Very good question. Maybe they did.
Maybe they did. That would require them to be self-aware to a reasonable degree.
Maybe it's part of some ritual where there's they create a baby, a vessel,
like magic. You mix some metal and some bolts, and boom, it's a
like
new king.
We're going to put the king's memories in here through our magic ritual, and then it'll grow.
Add some oil to this thing, and then
And then, as they found out 128 years later, he hasn't grown at all. How can we make him bigger? I don't know. We're too dumb to figure that out.
Oh, that was funny.
Sure is a cutie, though. Yeah, so tiny and cute. We better keep him safe. Right. Can't let anyone into this forest kingdom. And then so another one comes running in. Danger! Everyone get out now. The intruders are in the kingdom. Don't let them in here. And so they all come out and start attacking you and trying to keep you away. But of course, as we all know from a playthrough, you get in there. They're all confused. This is their king. What the fetch is this? And then A2 just comes down like Sephiroth and freaking impales the thing.
Yes.
Which was, like you're saying, and I think is profound, an empty vessel. Meaning not just physically, but it did not actually have the memories of King Emmanuel in it.
It didn't.
It's literally hollow. It's just
an empty vessel.
That's the thing in itself. It's a hollow vessel.
But
they interpreted it for 128 years as their king.
Oh my gosh.
That's how I think Emmanuel Kant relates to this Forest Kingdom story.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I came up with.
I think that's pretty good.
How that
you know what's stupid? I missed the Emmanuel reference for this podcast, and I have read that book.
Yeah, you read it recently.
I read it just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was a long book. I wish I was more prepared. I've read a few since then. But I wish that I was aware that Emmanuel was likely actually referring to Kant
what it was
in particular.
referring to.
Yeah, that book is crazy, by the way.
Yeah, I kind of want to read it too. The thing is like I was all intent on reading Pensée and what was Jean-Paul Sartre's book?
I don't know.
Something in meaninglessness. Anyway.
I haven't read that.
I can't remember the name of it.
And
anyway,
then the Second Sex. Right?
I bought them all, and I bought the Second Sex, and I want to read this now too. And it's like there's just not enough time.
A Critique on Pure Reason is likely as long as all three of those combined.
Probably.
So it's a difficult one. But the thing in itself, I think is I think that's a reasonable, application.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of brings us to the end of that section, except that we get another one of the animated sequences narrated by 9S. Whether in wind or rain, thunder or snow, or even amidst the rising flames of war, they were always together. They never understood why, and yet they spent their lives nestled together forever and ever. Did you have notes on this?
Was this about the king who we had just
I think so,
met?
The Forest Kingdom, yeah.
So it's possible that the king, this was the king's baby, however that works, but that it's saying that they spent their lives together, right? So the king had this little baby with him all the time. And that could be a way that it's it has the memories of the king because it was always with the king. Now, did we see the baby in that first?
I'm actually trying to conjure in my mind right now what the visual for this one was, and I'm not seeing it.
I don't remember.
I might need to look it up real quick.
Well, there was like a silhouette of the king, and there's a baby in his bosom, kind of like an old Catholic painting with Mary and Christ.
Yeah.
It was the machine and this baby wrapped in the clothes that it's in the game, just a little blanket with a rope around it.
Yeah.
And then as the camera zooms out and you see exactly 12 robots that are around it, kind of like protecting it and, being like, this is our king. One of the other reasons why I really thought Emmanuel was probably referencing Christ or the Bible.
It could be.
I
might be way off on this one.
No, I don't think you are. And it would make more sense for Yoko Taro to put in Kant than literally Jesus.
Jesus, yeah.
Because if he was going to do Jesus, there's a lot more he could have done than this.
Yeah, sure.
But there were 12 robots around, so I thought that was interesting. And basically just says that they were always together no matter what. And I guess that this baby was always with the king, I guess. And then the king dies and now the baby's alone. But it says that they spend their lives nestled together forever and ever. Gosh, forever? And it's almost like the baby isn't even really sentient, right?
Yeah, right.
The meaning it got from life was then, and it's just like chilling and doing nothing now. And it would still consider itself as part of the king who is dead, and it's just kind of living life like unaware of anything else.
Yeah.
And, it spent its life in that state, you could say.
Yeah.
When it totally got destroyed. Got stabbed, which stabbing, it just doesn't seem like stabbing would do anything.
Right.
Like unless you hit it right in the core.
In the what do you call it? Freaking personality index core, whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Which I guess A2 would have a pretty good idea of where that is, having killed, I think, many, many machines in her time.
In the past, yeah.
Okay, then I've got more about 9S's operator and being the exact opposite of 2B's operator.
Go for it.
It's so funny. This is the idea that I already had mentioned before, that the inner voice pulls them in opposite directions to balance them out. So the next scene I have is with Adam and Eve.
Yes, same.
Okay, they're reading books.
Yep, reading books. Why must we read all these books, brother? Knowledge expands horizons and enriches existence.
So saith the humans.
Yeah, and I love this line. But can't we just transfer this data over instantly? Into your head, perhaps, but not into your heart.
Not into your heart. That was good.
I guess. Hey, so, yes, my name, Eve. This book says it's a woman's name.
So they're reading the Bible.
Shouldn't we be called, which, I mean, they referenced eating fruit and gaining intelligence earlier, so.
But they're still at the beginning of the Bible, though. Yes. I find this interesting.
Yeah, what is the time span in between these scenes?
I don't know, but they're still in Genesis, 3. Like, they're at the very beginning, dude.
Shouldn't we be called Cain and Abel or something
that's
instead?
That's Genesis 4.
So they would have at least gone that far. Humans wouldn't change names so easily.
Right.
Besides,
so they're like, we were endowed with the gift of our names. Yeah. We aren't going to go against.
Just go change it.
Yeah, just go change it willy-nilly.
Besides, you should be proud of the name Eve. Huh. Well, if that's what you think, then I'm fine with it. Glad to hear it.
It's almost like Eve lives for Adam.
Yes, 100%.
The way you were mentioning
in the way
that
was actually my thought, is Eve is sort of just living for him in the same way that Simone just lived for Jean-Paul.
Just lived for Jean-Paul, exactly.
It's very similar.
Somebody brought up that I have many times referred to Eve by the pronoun she.
Yes, instead of he.
Total accident. I don't know what to think of them in terms of gender, but they seem to present as males, and that's what I am going to refer to them as. But the name Eve, it's hard for me to get rid of the attached pronoun to Eve for it to be a he. That's hard for me to do on the fly.
Okay. Let's see.
Oh, glad to hear. Also, 9S is kind of like Eve, don't you think?
A little bit, yeah. We talked about them being the foils of the character that they're opposite of.
However, 2B isn't much like Adam, I don't think. But 9S seems to be quite similar to Eve in some ways.
But not in others. Like, I know exactly what you mean. Like,
she doesn't seem to care much to pursue the reading of books or anything like that. She doesn't care about the philosophy. She doesn't care about that at all.
Yeah. So you're right.
I
think it's more like temperament. More like level of seriousness.
Yes, for sure.
How seriously you take yourself and your mission.
Serious. Yeah.
Anyways.
That's interesting. I also thought that, I think later on we'll talk more about why I think 9S and Eve are similar.
Okay. And then Adam says, is there something else? After we're done reading, can we go out and play? I'm sure it'll be tons of fun.
I'm
All
sure
right, but-
that's what makes me think that they haven't played yet.
Yes, it could be.
Because Eve's like, it'll be fun, I promise.
Or it could just
like,
be
as if
'cause
Adam doesn't know it'll be
the
fun.
next day and they want to go play again.
I
or something,
suppose. But Eve seems to have to promise that it will be fun, as if Adam doesn't already
want
know
to
that.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but only after we're finished. You mean it? Then I'm going to try extra hard to finish this. Like extra hard.
Ah, it's like my
You do that.
3-year-old son. Yeah, you
It's
do
exactly what it feels like. It feels like a little boy.
A
or
little
something,
kid, yeah.
Like really young, Okay.
that. My next one's about the Leviathan.
Yep,
here.
at the scene
Yes.
after it's all over.
The scene after.
Yeah, this was my favorite one. Go ahead. Did you take down the
I'll just
dialogue?
read it. Yep. The child held sway over enormous strength. Now it's showing us a picture of basically I call it Leviathan. What did they call it? In the Japanese, they say kaiju, by the way.
They called it. Did they just say monster?
Monster? Okay.
I think
Maybe
they might
they
have
didn't
said
name it.
monster, but I can't remember.
I'll just call it Leviathan. That's more or less what it is. The Japanese says kaiju. It says the child held enormous strength, but sadly was also a little bit broken. He spent his days trying to do good. He was abandoned in the deep, dark ocean. I remember I missed a line here, but
Yeah, despite his efforts,
despite
things
his
never
efforts,
seemed to turn out.
They didn't turn out. So he was abandoned in the deep, dark ocean, and from the cold he cried out, "Mother, mother." But the voice never reached his mother.
And then another line too. They told him he was unwanted. So, yeah.
So he was created for a purpose. He couldn't do what he was created to do.
or he was too good at it.
Or he was. That's a good way of reading it. Either way, they made him to be strong. He was too strong.
Yeah.
So they had to abandon him, essentially.
Yeah.
And they're showing the picture. It kind of looks like a small thing,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if it was literally small and grew up. It was probably always that big,
yeah.
but it felt of itself as being small because
Yeah.
it still wanted a mother. It still wanted something to grow into, to look up towards, or to please,
Yeah.
And that was the mother. And it was around this point where I realized that, like, I was assuming all of these scenes were building on some fundamental mythology of the machines, but a lot of these are just referencing one specific machine,
Yeah.
or Adam, or the Leviathan, or some,
Yeah.
or even de Beauvoir. No, not de Beauvoir.
Simone. Yeah.
Simone, there was one. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's not a total mythology for all of them. It's more or less just little insights into each one, given that 9S kind of hacked into each one, or that he had gained access through the whole
Network.
to gain this knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's true.
It's really sad. It makes you feel bad for this like huge,
for
ugly
sure.
monster.
Yeah, and just the fact that it's not a monster. I mean, it's
Right.
just a child. It has the mind of a child, and it was designed to do something. It had an essence
Yeah. Yes.
that it struggled to. Well, it was nurtured into that role. Your job is to do this, and it tried to do its best to do that, and that actually is what
Yeah.
caused its
gosh.
alienation and disconnection from the network and abandonment.
Yeah.
And what would it have chosen to do had it taken its own destiny into its own hands?
That implies almost that it was designed to do something, but that the design itself was defective in some way.
Yes.
There's this idea. Oh, where did I read this? The book Atomic Habits, I think, talks about this, where he says that a system is best designed to get the result that it got.
Yes.
Right now, you don't know that because you don't know the future, but 10 years down the road, you'll realize the net result of your system, and it may not be what you wanted, right?
Yeah,
So it's like, oh, I'm going to program artificial intelligence to help grandmothers in a hospital, and then fast forward 10 years, and it's running your military, launching nukes, and it's like, that's not
what it was built for. Yeah.
Because of that result, it's like, no, you didn't
is
realize.
what you designed. You just didn't realize you were designing it.
The design was best fit for that scenario, not the one that you thought of.
Yes.
So in this case, it's like, hey, let's make a giant, strong machine. Okay, we'll build it, we'll put it in the water, and it'll do its thing. Oh, shoot, don't do that, but you designed it to do that, right? So, but so instead of getting upset at the nurture, which is like, oh, I taught it not to do that. Yeah, you taught it not to do that, but you designed it to do that. Otherwise, it wouldn't have done it, right? So given that we're dealing with machines here, like the process is best attuned to the results. Whatever happened is what the machine, it's what was going to happen given that specific set of circumstances.
Right.
So this would mean that like the creators aren't perfect, right?
Yes.
They're doing, but they don't know what to do once they've created it, right?
Yes.
So they created a thing that didn't do what they wanted to, but for whatever reason, they weren't able to disassemble it. This is a tremendous waste of resources.
Oh, huge waste.
This massive robot, bigger than the biggest boat.
It's the biggest machine in the game, as far as I know.
And you're like, let's bury it and like pretend that it doesn't exist, right? It probably was supposed to be on land, now that I think about it, because then they threw it into the cold ocean to get rid of it, essentially. But man, I guess that they couldn't have done anything else because they designed it too well, not realizing what the design was actually geared towards doing.
Actually for, yep.
I think that's interesting.
My next note after this is the pods again, exchanging data, talking about, it's more or less almost a total repeat of the first one. We pods often participate in the same battles. Exchanging our situational data would theoretically allow us to plan combat strategies in a more efficient manner. Proposal: data should be transferred regularly between pod 042 and pod 153. Analysis: this idea is sound. Proposal accepted.
Proposal accepted.
Records will be organized in time for the next situational exchange. I love the dialogue between
I love it too.
It's so good.
And because you almost get between the two pods that there's like the smallest possibility that they could like fall in love with each other.
Yeah, right.
But I can't tell if that's really like anybody else would think that, or if the game has conditioned us to be so open and to reject our prejudices against what a machine or robot is, or the limits of what it can or can't do based on its essence or whatever, that we're looking at this thing and thinking, oh, I wonder if they will fall in love. I think it's written that way, at least in part, because when they talk about an exchange of information, right?
Yeah.
There's something like almost sexual about the idea of like, oh, hey, you know that thing? That was pretty cool. We should do it more often. Hey, how about like every Friday or something? Like we get together and exchange information. Like I can't help but read it that way. I would never have read it this way otherwise. But the way Yoko Taro has invaded my mind and caused me to think about robots, I'm even looking at this obvious display of nothing but just efficiency trying to find a solution and thinking like, oh, this looks like two lovers trying to like negotiate a relationship.
Are we looking at the thing itself, or are we
or am I seeing like I'm anthropomorphizing things,
interpretation of something? That's funny.
It's so funny. Then I've just got the text adventure because we didn't really get text
and I took photos of all these because I was not going to like sit there and pause the game and write it down.
I looked all over for like a script of this game.
I couldn't find one.
I couldn't either.
Which is why my note taking has been way slower because I've had to pause and write and pause and write and pause and write. But this time I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to take pictures and we'll just read it. We get into this another hacking section here.
Because this is after 9S, after the EMP, right?
Yes. Yeah. So he gets knocked out
and this
from
is where
the
Adam
Leviathan.
Finds him.
Yeah, and he's taken by Adam.
Yeah.
And he's trying to like reboot, essentially. And so it's kind of the same thing. You start in that little puzzle world as the little triangle, and you go around, you're booting up your systems, memory diagnostics, all that sort of stuff. And then basically he starts talking to Adam. But yeah, I was just talking about last time how this game doesn't go quite as far as the first game as far as like inspiration from different genres, different game genres, and how that one used text adventure. And I had totally forgotten that this is a bit of a text adventure right here.
It's
not really text adventure because you don't make choices.
No, you're just reading.
You're just reading, but it's reminiscent of that section of the first game.
Yeah, it is.
So I find myself in a bizarre memory storage area stretching out as far as I can see. It's a maze. It's a labyrinth, a massive interconnected network. I've never seen anything like it.
And this is the machines,
This is the machine network that he's in. I've never seen anything like it. It must have been created by the machines. So then what am I doing here? So somehow he ended up in the machine network from that EMP blast. Like something about that eruption like put his consciousness into the machine network. I am 9S. That's all I can remember. Large portions of my memory may have been destroyed. What if I forget everything? My memories, myself, Okay, calm down. Calm down. Just follow the emergency manual and execute the memory recovery program. The recovery program begins to fill in the blanks in my memory. They drift back like missing letters filling out a word. The bunker, 2B's plan, a colossal machine life form, the last resort missile strike. So he's reassembling his memories.
Yeah, that's right.
Preservation mode was activated at the moment of the blast. It halted most of the safeties the network had in place. And then you're kind of navigating around. Wait, it must have been the EMP blast. I got a picture of him like moving around and
that's right.
A little dialogue box will kind of come off of the triangle.
That's right. Yeah,
moving through. Hooked me up to the machine network too somehow. It took a while, but the recovery program managed to restore most of my memory functions. However, I still can't establish a link to my body. Well, I guess there's nothing else to do but examine the surrounding memory space. So you're going around, checking things out. It looks like the machines gathered and stored a lot of info in here. It all seems pretty random at first, but on closer inspection, I learn how it's all connected. This is similar to his realization that these machines are not just saying random things earlier, right? It's just random things they're accessing from the old world. Don't listen to them. It doesn't mean anything. He's finally coming to terms with this. It all seems pretty random at first, but on closer inspection, I learned how it's all connected. There are a variety of entries, such as data on human history and philosophy. But what's really strange are the records of machines stored next to those. In the politics category are records of the machine's own governmental endeavors. Yeah. This is really big for where the story is going after B. So like kind of what it's going to focus on thematically in the final act of the game. So they in their political structures and their governmental endeavors, they tried all sorts of things: absolute monarchies, republics, democracies. And that wasn't all. They also engaged in other scholarly pursuits such as philosophy, mathematics, science, and social criticism. It's like the network was copying every possible human behavior and discipline, almost as if, and then you're going around again, the machines are imitating humans. I just laughed at that.
Where's he been, man?
They told you straight up, Adam and Eve did, that this is exactly what they're doing. Like, were you just absent in this fight? Why would they do that? He told you why. Anyway, I dive deeper into the records. I can find no indication of the machines creating new cultures or values. Nothing new. They only imitate human behavior. The strange thing is, if a unit fails, it fails in exactly the same way the next time. For example, if a machine forms a dictatorship that eventually collapses, it won't try a new type of government, it just forms a new dictatorship. Or if it plants crops and they die, it just tries the same thing again and again and again.
This is interesting.
They keep performing the same behaviors. They don't ever learn. When it comes to combat, the machines show overwhelming adaptive behavior and evolutionary speed. So why do they insist on imitating humanity? And more specifically, why do they imitate their failures? It's almost as if the objective is failure itself. I sense a change in the data, some kind of movement. I hone my perception and hold my breath. I hear something, a distant voice. I and now all androids, it's kind of jumbled. There's something there, something clearly intelligent. I announce to all androids. The words simmer into focus. The voice grows clear in my mind. It is Adam, a machine made in the image of man. We machine life forms have evolved, he says. We made war, learned, grew, and thus we gained a new consciousness. Indeed, it is as if a new form of existence has been born. Lies, nothing but lies from mere machines. This is his rebuttal to that. No, you can't possibly be intelligent. Adam laughs, and yet you androids claim to be alive? How very odd. You are puppets who lack even your own free will. No, you're wrong.
Yep.
His words flow through me as though they were poured into my ear. How am I wrong, boy? We're... Perhaps you have a will after all, he chuckles. Perhaps you have desires. Now you see, boy, the true meaning of life is hatred. You're wrong. A vile hatred slumbers in the depths of your heart. No, you're wrong. This is a very anime.
That's impossible.
Thing.
Luke.
The more you try to hide it, the more the darkness grows. Wrong.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
All who live are slaves to desire. Such internal appetites are what give our lives meaning. Some seek beauty, others serenity. For me, hatred is the I'm not like that.
Yep.
Ha ha, oh yes you are. You do not trust anything. You want to destroy everything. You have lost hope in everything. You want to obtain everything. You want to be loved by all. You're thinking about how much you want to, and it actually censors the word.
Yeah, with 4 stars.
F2B, aren't you? Really stained, reality stained by lies. Stop it, stop it. Hatred pouring into you. No, you're wrong, damn it. It's a bit much. It goes a little overboard with this. It kind of just carries on and on and on. I talked in an earlier episode about how Tara's writing can be a little bit this way sometimes.
Yeah, belaboring the point a little bit.
Overflowing desire. I'm not like you. Your true self. So anyway, that's that section. Then he kind of comes out. He sort of wakes back up again. And oh no, sorry, we get one more animated sequence that sort of give context on the machines. Each of the machines treated their treasures with great care. One treasured family above all else.
Family.
That's Emmanuel.
Yeah.
Another treasured its older sibling. This is Eve.
Yeah.
Another treasured its own beauty. This is Simone. But one more machine treasured, or another machine treasured something unique above all else. Hate. And this is apparently Adam. Adam. He treasures hate above all else.
Okay. Adam says somewhere in all of that, essentially, essentially that the true meaning of life is hatred.
Yes.
And it makes sense that that was his,
conclusion.
His conclusion, given the way that the next scene plays out, right? Like it is talking about him because, humanity is defined by hatred
Conflict.
As much as.
Yeah.
Well, they said that we made war and killed, but loved in equal measure.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like he was trying to make sense of that. But when he discovered the human tendency to hate, I feel like it filled in the gaps for him and made him be like, "Oh, that's the secret. That's the real essence of humanity." Right.
Yeah. It's almost like he's not even saying it in the way you might think a villain to say this who's embodied with hate.
No,
it's almost just like intellectually.
Let your hate flow
I came
through
to
you.
the conclusion. Oh, hate's the answer. Oh, that's it. It's hate.
Here, hey, 9S.
I figured it out.
9S, it's hate. And 9S is giving it. He's like, dude, bro, like, chill, man. Like,
no, that's not
I'm just
me.
telling you.
Like, no, it's hate. It's just a fact.
Matter of fact, yeah.
It's almost, matter-of-factly sort of saying it.
Now, I want to bring up here a video that Landon did on our channel years ago. Mm-hmm. It's called Dark Souls, The Nobility of Failure.
Yes.
You remember this, right?
I do. It's a good video.
So it's a very good video. Landon did some really good work on our channel years ago. So when 9S says the machines fail over and over and over, like failure is the point.
Yeah.
There's an idea in Japan of the concept of something like the nobility of failure, right? How when you fail 1,000 times at something, but you still keep trying, there's a sense probably in all over the world where it's like, wow, you got to give it to him. He doesn't give up, right? That would be a more Western approach to it. Mm-hmm. But in Japan, the idea is it's a lot deeper than that. It's like, wow, that person is something to emulate. That person is dedicated to their craft, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I bring up Jiro Dreams of Sushi a lot because I feel like it embodies some of the harsher or deeper cultural aspects of Japan. But Jiro makes like the best sushi in the world, right? And his son, so I don't know how, is Jiro, I wonder if he's still alive. He would be like
pretty old,
100 or 90 something now,
really freaking old,
if he was still alive. I don't know if he was, but he was like 80 something when that documentary aired. And his son was waiting to inherit the restaurant. But Jiro never retired. And Jiro was like in his 80s, still making sushi, running his restaurant. His son, as I mentioned before, you're not a man until your father dies, right? That's Sigmund Freud's opinion. Yep. Mm-hmm. His son is an employee at his father's restaurant at the age of 65.
Yep.
He's still waiting. He cannot run that restaurant himself until his father is dead. Yep. His father has made sure of it.
Yep.
He is at the retirement age where I won't say most, but a lot of people will retire in their 60s. And he is still waiting to inherit the thing from his dad, who won't stop working. But he talks about, or maybe it wasn't him, it was one of the other employees, talks about how his only job for like 5 years was to make egg sushi, right? And he did a really good job, and he kept for 5 years, every single day, he would make this egg sushi and present it to Jiro. Jiro would take a bite, spit it out, yell at him, and say, "This tastes like garbage, make it again." For 5 years, until finally, one day, he was so precise with everything. He finally made the egg sushi, right? Jiro takes a bite and says, not bad. And the guy cried. He burst into tears.
That is amazing.
Because that was the highest praise.
Yeah.
But to fail for 5 years straight,
Yeah.
in hopes that one day you will finally be able to get it right, is a very admirable
Well, there's
trait.
a whole Western idea that repeating
Japan.
the same thing with trying
Mark
to get
Twain,
a different result.
Yeah.
Is the definition of insanity.
Of insanity.
Right? We definitely don't view that the same
No,
way.
we would say, no, find a new way to do things.
Yeah,
Whereas
right.
traditional Japanese culture would say, keep hammering
Until
at
you
it.
make it work.
Make it work until eventually it will work. And was that Mark Twain? Or who?
I don't
who
know.
Was it that defined insanity that way?
I can't remember who said it.
It might not have been Twain. But so in Landon's video about the nobility of failure, he talks about something called Hoganbiki, and it's something that Japanese will
Mix is
tell
saying
themselves.
Einstein. That name came into my mind, but I didn't want to
Einstein.
say it because I was like, nah, it can't be right. But yeah, I thought it was Einstein. Anyway. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So it is
Why did I
Einstein.
think Mark Twain? Okay. Yeah, way off there. Okay, so there was a lieutenant in old Japan named Yoshitsune, right? And he was the lieutenant. Hogan means lieutenant, right? So Hoganbiki means to honor the lieutenant. Yoshitsune is somebody who tried so hard to rule Japan, basically,
Yes.
and ultimately got weeded out, and he ran away, and he ultimately ended up committing seppuku, right? But he tried so hard, and he failed, and in the end, he died, and he never got what he wanted. But there is nobility in his failure. There is this beauty. Japanese people will look at Yoshitsune and say, wow, he's someone to emulate, right? Because he just kept trying. He didn't give up. Another thing here is wabi-sabi, right? Wabi-sabi comes from the Buddhist idea of nothing lasts, nothing is finished, and nothing is perfect, right? And the idea of, at least for nothing being finished or nothing being perfect, is that no matter what you do, you're going to have to keep doing it forever. And the idea is that eventually you may not do it perfectly, but you'll get better each time.
Right.
You'll get a little bit better and better. And because there is no perfect, it's like the principle of calculus. You divide by half, essentially you never get to zero.
Yeah.
Because if you go from 1 to 0, but it's half of 1 is this, half of that is that, half of that is 1.125. You get so close, but it's this parabola that evens out just below the mark, and you never actually get to the place you're trying to go. You never actually get there, but you do get a little closer each time until it's infinitesimally small, but you're still not there, right? So that's good stuff. And then this also reminds me a little bit of Simone de Beauvoir, because the idea of nothing is perfect, right? That all of these attempts for her to become perfect have marginally increased to a point that she can never actually attain. She never actually gets there. She keeps getting closer and closer and closer, but no matter, she can do this for infinity, and she will never actually get Jean-Paul's attention. Yeah. And I believe that. Jean-Paul, man, that guy.
He's never going to let
it's never going to happen. It's not in his essence. He would hate me for saying that, but I believe I'm correct there.
He would debate that for sure.
So he would just do it just to prove me wrong. He'd be like, all right, Simone, let's go out. Okay, so guys, everybody go watch that video from Landon. It's very good, but I think it's more or less what these machines find deep meaning in the failure, right? They're failing over and over and over, but they find meaning in the failure. There's a nobility to it. They're like, we're being like the humans, and they see humans as essentially nobility, right? Something to emulate, something that
a god.
That governs their fate. Yeah, like a god. And they're like, the humans failed 1,000 times, right? What is it, Michael Jordan? He missed 20,000 shots in his career or whatever. Right. Or this may, okay, dang it, the quote. Okay, so back when I was in high school, people would always use Donald Trump to say he declared bankruptcy how many times? 9? No, this is back when The Apprentice happened. It was
I know, it's just so funny the way the world has changed.
But I don't want to not use it as an example. It's just that people don't see him as the best businessman in the world. But back when The Apprentice was running, when I was in high school, that was the view of Trump. Yeah. And there was this great, not rags to riches, because he was always rich, but he didn't give up. He would declare bankruptcy and he would just keep going until finally he hit on this thing that worked. And he, so don't give up, guys. And that was what my teachers and stuff, they would always use Trump as an example. I knew there's an example. As soon as I realized it was Trump, I'm like, oh, great. Anyways, but the idea of the nobility of failure, that's something that the machines would find meaning in doing. And this is one thing. It was at Camus. Mix will tell me if this was Camus or not. But he said, I think it's in the myth of Sisyphus, that Sisyphus keeps pushing the rock up the hill, and the idea is that this is a horrible punishment, right? Mm-hmm. But then the question is posed, what if Sisyphus finds meaning in the work?
Yeah.
Is it a punishment now?
Right.
What if it's deeply meaningful for him, just as I was saying, like the principle of calculus, you get closer and closer. He never quite gets that rock up to the top, and it rolls back down, but he keeps doing it. And if he finds meaning in doing that, then who are you to tell me that he was being punished in so doing? Mm-hmm. And that, or who are you to tell the robots that you're just failing? What are you doing? Are you stupid? Right? It's like, no, they find meaning in it, in which case it's like a good thing in their lives, right? Mm-hmm. It's something that's like propelling them towards a certain end. So, okay, Mick says, yes, but Sisyphus can find meaning in the little things, even if he is doomed to roll the rock over and over again. And it is the little things that, as Camus says, one must think Sisyphus happy.
Interesting. Okay, my next note here is that we come back after that text adventure section with Adam essentially being killed by 2B. She takes 9S back to the bunker.
Yep.
We get a new scene in the bunker where 9S is in the maintenance room. He sort of self-hacks.
Yeah,
and he accesses again his memory diagnostics, visual
systems.
This one's crazy. Yeah, and he's sort of like, getting to a point where it's like, okay, time to wake up now or sync back up with the bunker's server or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's sort of just a glitch. He's like, whoa, what was that? And he's like, hold off on the data transfer.
Yes.
Like, something's not quite right. Yep. Let me look into this real quick. So he's a little bit worried about what that was. And so he ends up kind of accessing the server and looking around in there for the bunker.
Yep.
Actually ends up trying to get over to the server on the moon, like accessing the server on the moon where the Council of Humanity is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And he sees these barriers there. He's like, why is there a barrier here? Looks like records for supplies shipped to the moon. So like he's like blocked from seeing this. Strange. There's just a bunch of empty, because he hacks in to find out
figures it
why there's a barrier there. There's just a ton of empty containers that were sent to the moon. That's weird.
Yep,
like, why would they do that? And then he tries to access the Council of Humanity and Project Yorha records index and finds an attack barrier there. So those little sections where you have to shoot.
Yeah. Right? So he gets in.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, like, why would they do that? Why would they install a barrier like that on the service? Makes no sense. Let's see. Looks like info about how the Council of Humanity was formed as a part of Project Yorha.
He goes, wait, isn't that backwards?
That's backwards. That shouldn't be right. It should have been the Council of Humanity that made Project... What? So after a long period of battles and adventures, the prophet spoke. Oh, grant me thy mercy of the land. This is part of the data he's accessing there. Oh, grant me the joy of the heavens. Release me from my yoke of iron. Thus shall our souls be. And then it kind of cuts. What was that? Like, oh, crap, did they find me? He's thinking maybe they've discovered that he's hacking. And no, So he kind of gets woken up because 2B is calling for backup back down on the surface. And so he wakes up to go give support because she's back in the abandoned factory with Pascal now.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
And so he's going to go access the machine network.
Yeah, so he hacks in, and this is where you get to play as a machine for a little bit.
But good things here setting up for this big reveal about humanity.
Yes.
That he's started to find out. So
very good.
This is where he hacks into their network and takes over machines directly. He sort of hops from one to the other, getting into stronger ones, making his way through, trying to find her. And then he ends up hearing the same thing that he found in that moon server. After a long period of battles and adventures, the prophet spoke, "Oh, grant me the mercy of the land. Oh, grant me the joy of the heavens. Release me from my yoke of iron. Thus shall our souls be saved forever and ever, forever and ever." This is at the end of him having gone and opened all the doors for her and helps her escape.
Yeah.
So after
what was this, by the way? Do you know what that was? Why did he have that flashback right there? This is while he was a machine, isn't it?
Well, so yeah, he hears this
Right.
he's like in the abandoned factory.
Was it a machine saying that?
Let me pull that up because I actually kind of forgot.
Well, I think it just comes as an impression in his mind, like just, whoa, what was that? Okay, so it's just a cut.
It's like
just, okay.
It's like the last of those little animated sequences.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that would imply that he found that in the machine network. That saying.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, but I just read that on the moon server.
Ooh, yeah.
Why? Because I think that's exactly what he says. I think I wrote that down. He says, those were the words I heard in the moon server.
Yeah.
But why? So he found the words from the moon server in the machine network.
Right.
And that's crazy. Why would that be?
This is good. It says, release me from my yoke of iron. It's got these machines with wings that are flying upwards. Like they're ascending upwards towards like a great being that looks like a machine form or something like that. But it's like this idea of heaven. But it also has some Gnostic colorings.
Oh, sure.
Right. The idea of like, release me from a yoke of iron means like, get me out of this body, basically. Like I'm trapped in this body. I want to escape. I want to go up. I want to ascend.
Mm-hmm. And then I actually had not remembered that this happened quite the way it does. As soon as it does, also, but as directly as it does, Ninus just walks up to the commander and asks whether Yorha created the Council of Humanity.
Yes, and more ridiculous than that, she just answers.
She's like,
okay, yeah, we did.
Mankind no longer exists.
What the heck?
I was like, what?
That's
not how I remembered this going down.
Well, I couldn't believe. So for anybody. Okay, so in the end of ending A playthrough, I referenced that I happened to be aware of a massive spoiler for this game before playing it. This was it. Mankind is dead, and they've been dead this whole time.
Yep.
For like thousands of years.
Yeah.
Well, I thought this would be ending E.
Yeah, like
this
the
is
end
ending
of the
B.
game
I am now blind going into the rest of this game,
game,
which I think there's still quite a bit more for me to play.
There's a
and
lot.
so I'm excited again now because I'm like, oh shoot, I thought that was like the big reveal. It sounds like there's probably going to be more fun stuff in store for me.
There's a lot more stuff.
So I'm really excited to continue playing the game, first of all. But second of all, the way that they chose to reveal it was crazy.
Yeah.
And why is she acquiescing so easily? It would be so easy. Maybe not for androids, but it would be so easy for humans, at least, to be like, oh, that thing, that was a joke. That was actually an emergency scenario. Think of what the military, or like
would come up with.
If there's a leak about what the government's doing and the government says, oh, that was, this fake thing or whatever. That was a scenario. What if this happened? That's what this was for. And it's like they can, find ways of getting around it. But she doesn't do that.
No.
She just comes clean, and she's just like, humans have been dead for your entire life.
Yeah.
And like, so.
And the reason why will be revealed later.
Yes.
So that's coming up. So yeah, there really is kind of a lot more to look forward to. Your experience with NieR Automata is not ruined by knowing that fact.
Good.
It is a big reveal,
it
but it's not like the thing that like
why everyone
like,
thinks this game's so
the plot
good.
centers around that.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of does, but not really. There's still like a lot more to learn coming up. So.
It's super fascinating. She even says humans never went to the moon at all. In fact, humanity had already died when the aliens first attacked. What was that, 5,000, 6,000 years ago?
Yes, right.
Humans had already been dead, right?
Right.
And so then he asks her, like, why are you covering this up? And she gives this line where she says, no one fights without a reason, and we need a God worth dying for. So what path will you take? It's up to you to decide.
Yeah.
So she's letting this low level, like 9S is not like, he doesn't hold great sway up in the bunker. Like he's just like a dude. Yep. He's a scout. Like even with 2B, he's clearly the subservient one.
Yep.
Like she's just letting him have this knowledge and letting him just go. And like he's going to tell 2B.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, that's his intention at least, is to do that. I don't think he does by the end of this, but he's going to. She knows he's going to. Is it not a big deal if the androids find out about this? Or... like what's her deal? I really am confused by her because this isn't how humans act.
Yeah.
She seems to be on a different level.
Yeah. This is one of those mysteries or one of those reveals that just creates more mysteries.
Right.
And it's
now
just like, wait a
why?
minute.
Why and how and who and what and when? Okay, she sort of says when, but
Yeah. So it definitely opens up some doors and it gets crazier. So,
Then we got Eve again.
Yeah, we got the scene where Eve is mourning his brother. I'll kill him. I'll end it all. It's not meaningless. All that stuff. The human race is gone. What will I tell 2B? We're back up in the bunker with 9S. And then he heads out to get in his flight suit. I don't know if you saw this. It's a little more obvious you see something like this at the very, very end of the B ending. But as he's getting into the flight suit, there's a little projection, like a little girl, ghostly,
I did,
kind of standing
and
behind
also
it.
when 2B strangles him in the end,
there's two of them.
Two of them.
Yeah. So I had never seen her.
That's a bigger mystery to me than anything.
Yeah, I had never seen her in the bunker like that.
Oh,
I had seen the two girls like projected there at the ending. But I was like, wait a minute, what's that? And I went back and looked again, and I was like, oh crap, like. She's right there in the bunker, like standing next to the flight suit, like watching him go down there. That's crazy. So yeah, it's easy to miss, but she's there. Okay, and then my next note is toward the end of the end of the Eve fight, 9S hacks him and is fighting him kind of inside the machine network. Right, there's this whole section of hacking, and Eve is fighting you in there. Let's see, and then. This is where 9S gets infected with the logic virus, and he's saying, oh, what's this? And his pod says, alert, disruption detected in Yorha unit 9S's self-consciousness data. Corruption potential critical evacuation recommended. Oh, I can't. Not when I'm this far in. And then she comes back, or I say she. It's a female voice, but it's just the pod. Corruption confirmed in Yorha Unit 9S's self-consciousness data. Immediate evacuation and treatment recommended. Just a little more. If I can remove Eve's object control function, so he's just hacking further and further and further. Eventually, they destroy Adam or destroy Eve, kill Eve. There's another scene at the end of that section where Adam and Eve are kind of on opposite sides of the table, and Eve says, "Listen to me, Adam. I never disliked fighting, but I didn't want you to be hurt, and I especially didn't want to lose you. So let's go somewhere quiet together, my brother." So he had suggested at some point to not do this, to not fight, to not give in to the hatred he had intellectually decided was the point of humanity, and that to live means I have to fight with the very real possibility of dying, the whole thing we talked about before. He's like, please don't do that.
And since you brought that up, there's also the idea of what the commander says. She says, we need a God worth dying for.
Yes.
She has come, the android elites have come to the same decision that Adam did.
Yes.
You have to find something that is worth giving up your life for.
In order to
live,
a purpose,
to have a purpose.
Or really have a meaningful life.
There has to be that possibility. And so Adam, we rip on Adam for his naive decision, but then it's like, wait, that's what the androids are doing as well. Yeah. Almost the same thing.
It's almost like Yorha is a religious institution. Right?
Absolutely.
They created a God worth dying and fighting for.
It's intertwined, right? It's a theocracy, you could say.
Yeah.
Right? Where they control the revelation from God and the dictates of the government as one single entity.
Yes.
Yeah, there's tremendous
So we'll get a lot more into that discussion.
Yes, I can't wait.
In a later point, but... okay, so then I wrote, as 2B strangles 9S, there are two girls with black hair and red dresses projected on either side of them.
Yeah, well, I hope we figure that out later.
More mystery there. And then the final dialogue from 9S in this ending, even though it's the same shot, with it's kind of pulling back, and he's holding her there as the robot, and she's standing in the palm of his hand. And so the final battle with Adam and Eve came to an end. This battle will likely have a great effect on the outcome of the war. 2B and our battle will continue for some time to come. But that's another story for another day.
Who are they going to be fighting?
Right. This is not the end at all.
No, and they make very clear that.
It's actually more like a beginning, in a sense.
And this was called Or Not To Be, with the B.
Yep, B as
brackets.
Capital.
There's a little credits scene, too, that was...
Yes, as the credits roll, there's more stuff that you
I didn't take notes on it, but it's good. It's just showing building character between 9S and 2B.
Yeah, so I wrote, as the credits roll this time, you can control 2B in the bunker. 9S seems to want to tell her about humanity being destroyed.
He doesn't.
He thinks better of it. Yeah. And then that you see a preview of what's to come. And it gives you the names of the next two endings right here. Meaningless Code.
Children...
And Childhood's End.
Yeah.
And the D's capitalized.
And you've read that one, right?
I have. That's great.
Okay,
book.
that'll be
phenomenal.
I look forward to hearing about that. Yeah. And I just have one more note, and then we got to go.
Yeah.
Eve says that Adam was everything to him. His brother was his purpose, for he descended from his brother. He lost his purpose, and having lost it, he now wants to destroy everything. Some will have such a reaction to the loss of meaning in their lives.
Yeah.
And with that,
that's it.
Ending B.
NB.
Join us next time for Ending
I
C.
have no idea how far to play up to next time. We'll
play
put
Ending
it
C.
in the comments, but we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.
Bye.